I knew something was off the moment he left the restaurant. Our anniversary dinner, the one night that was supposed to be about us, ended with him mumbling some excuse about feeling tired and needing to check on work emails. He kissed my cheek like it was a chore and headed to the car first. I smiled at the waiter, forced a laugh, and followed. But in my gut, I knew he wasn't going home. He didn't drive toward our house. He took the side streets. Darker, quieter, the kind of path you choose when you don't want anyone to notice. I didn't say a word. I just slowed down, turned off my headlights, and followed. That's when my stomach dropped. He parked 2 blocks away from her house. My best friend, the woman who had toasted us at our wedding, who cried happy tears when we announced our engagement. I watched him kill the engine, glance at his phone, and get out like this wasn't the first time. My phone buzzed. A text from him. "Don't wait up. I'll be home late. Something came up with work." Work? On our anniversary. I pulled closer, engine silent, eyes locked on the front porch light that flicked on like it was waiting for him. The door cracked open, and there she was, robe tied loosely around her waist, hair perfectly undone, the look of someone expecting him, my best friend. She smiled and stepped aside, and he walked in. No hesitation, no guilt, no glance over his shoulder. He disappeared into her house like he belonged there. My chest burned, but not from heartbreak. It was rage, cold, sharp, cleaner than I'd ever felt it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, watching the 2 people I trusted most betray me in the most cliché, disgusting way possible. I could have stormed in. I could have dragged them both out onto the lawn and made a scene the neighbors would talk about for months. But what would that do? He'd spin it. She'd play innocent. I'd look like the unhinged wife who couldn't handle the truth. No, that wasn't going to be my story. I gripped the steering wheel, breathing steady, letting the anger settle into something else. Calculation. Every second I stayed there, I studied them. Her curtains, her lights, the shadow of him pacing behind the glass. I wasn't just catching them in the act. I was collecting the first brick in the wall I was going to bury them with. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message from her. "Happy anniversary, babe. Hope you're having a magical night. Can't wait to celebrate with you both this weekend." I stared at the screen until my nails bit into my palm. She was mocking me, smiling in my face while she kept him warm behind her door. I snapped a photo of his car in her driveway. The timestamp glowed on my screen. Then I zoomed in, catching the silhouette of his jacket tossed carelessly onto her couch. That was enough for tonight. I drove off before either of them noticed me. Not home, though. I couldn't walk into that house and pretend to be the clueless wife he thought I was. Instead, I pulled over at a quiet gas station, hands still shaking but not from weakness. No, this was the kind of shaking that comes when you've already made up your mind. I wasn't leaving him tonight. I wasn't packing bags or throwing plates. That's what they'd expect me to do. Explode, collapse, beg for answers. Instead, I was going to play dumb. I was going to kiss him goodnight when he stumbled back home smelling of her perfume. I was going to smile at my best friend when she texted me about brunch plans. And while they thought I was breaking apart inside, I'd be building the perfect weapon, because this wasn't going to end with shouting matches or slam doors. It was going to end in court, with him stripped of every dollar he tried to hide, with her reputation ground into dust. They wanted to humiliate me? Fine, I'd let them think they had. But the anniversary night they thought would bind them together was the same night I started writing their ending. And when it came, it wouldn't be quick. It wouldn't be quiet. It would destroy them both. My name is Carolyn Brooks. I'm 33 years old. And up until that anniversary night, I thought I knew what stability felt like. We weren't perfect, but who is? My husband, Daniel, always told me marriage was about compromise, about weathering storms together. And I believed him. I believed every word, even when the storms felt one-sided. We'd been married for 7 years, long enough to settle into routines, to know each other's habits, but not so long that people stopped calling us the young couple. We had a house in the suburbs, the kind with white shutters and a yard that always looked better in our realtor's listing photos than in reality. He worked in finance, numbers, meetings, long hours. I taught literature at the local community college. That's who we were. Him chasing money, me chasing meaning. Daniel thrived on being the provider. He liked reminding me that everything we had, the house, the car, even the vacations, came from his paycheck. I'd remind him that my job wasn't just about money, it was about passion, about leaving something behind. He'd laugh and call me a dreamer. Not cruelly, not with malice, but in that dismissive tone husbands get when they think their wives will always stay in their orbit no matter how small they make it. And then there was Chloe Miller, my best friend. She'd been in my life since high school. The kind of friend you don't question, the one who knows your secrets, your flaws, and still shows up at your door with wine after a bad day. She'd stood beside me as maid of honor at my wedding, tears in her eyes as she called me the luckiest woman alive. She lived 3 blocks away, close enough to be part of our lives, too close, though I didn't realize it back then. We were the trio everyone envied, the couple who hosted barbecues with Chloe always helping in the kitchen. The nights out, where Daniel would tease her like a sister, and she'd laugh, her hand brushing his arm in ways I told myself were harmless. She was family. At least, that's how I sold it to myself. But looking back, the cracks were there. One summer evening, maybe a year before our anniversary, Chloe and I sat on my porch, wine glasses in hand, the air thick with heat. She leaned in and said, "You know, Carolyn, men like Daniel, they get bored easily. You've got to keep things exciting, or they'll start looking elsewhere." I laughed it off, though something about the way she looked at me lingered. A smirk. A challenge. I told myself she was just projecting her own insecurities. Chloe never did manage to keep a steady relationship. Daniel, too, had his quirks. He was charming, no doubt about it. People loved him at parties. He had a way of commanding attention without even trying. But sometimes, when he drank, that charm tipped into arrogance. He'd brag about deals he closed, about how lucky I was to have someone like him. I'd smile, play the supportive wife, but inside, there were moments I wondered if his confidence was just a mask for something darker. Still, I loved him. Or at least, I loved the life we'd built. The predictability, the sense of belonging. On the day of our anniversary, I spent hours preparing. I booked the restaurant, picked the dress he once said made me look like the woman he fell in love with, and even bought him a gift, an engraved watch, something classic he could wear to work. I wanted it to matter. I wanted us to feel like us again, but he was distracted all evening. He kept checking his phone, muttering about deadlines. He barely touched the food. When I handed him the gift, he smiled, kissed me, and said, "It's perfect, babe." But his eyes, they weren't on me. They were somewhere else entirely. When the waiter brought dessert, Daniel excused himself to make a quick call. I waited, staring at the empty chair, convincing myself not to be upset. That's who Daniel was. Busy, in demand. I told myself it was just another night where work came first. But deep down, a knot was forming in my stomach. Later, when he drove us back, he suddenly changed routes. "Shortcut," he said. Eyes on the road, not meeting mine. We didn't live in that direction. My chest tightened, but I stayed quiet. It wasn't until we passed Chloe's street that I felt the blood drain from my face. I saw her porch light flicker on in the distance, like a beacon calling him home. "Do you want to stop by Chloe's?" I asked, careful, testing. He glanced at me for half a second, then shook his head. "Not tonight. I'm wiped." His hand gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. I smiled, nodding, but inside, alarms were blaring. Chloe had texted me earlier that day. "Rain check on drinks, babe. I'm exhausted. Let's do it another night." Exhausted, yet her light was on. And Daniel, my husband, was steering us right past her house like a moth circling a flame. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was tired, that the wine had gone to my head. But even as I sat there, forcing a calm expression, something inside me whispered the truth. This was the red flag, the kind you don't notice until it's too late. And I didn't know it then. But everything, my marriage, my friendship, my entire life, was already unraveling. The morning after our anniversary, Daniel slid into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Shirt pressed, hair combed, coffee mug in hand. He kissed me on the cheek and said, "Great dinner last night, babe." I almost laughed. Great dinner? He left halfway through, walked into Chloe's house, and crawled into our bed hours later pretending he'd been working late. But my face gave nothing away. "Yeah," I said, pouring my own coffee. "Great dinner." He smiled, relaxed, completely unaware that I hadn't slept a second. Inside, I was replaying everything. His car at Chloe's, her robe, the shadow of him through her blinds. My best friend sending me that text, mocking me with her emojis. I wanted to scream, but instead, I picked up my phone and texted Chloe. "Brunch today? Just us?" Her reply came fast. "Can't, babe. Migraine. Rain check?" Migraine. I stared at the screen, remembering her porch light, her perfect hair, the robe. My hands tightened around the phone until my knuckles went white. She was lying to me with the same ease Daniel had. That was the moment the betrayal started to spread like poison. For the next few days, I played dumb. I smiled, made dinner, asked about Daniel's work. But at night, when he was in the shower, I checked his phone. He never let it out of his sight, but he was careless. A notification flashed while he was rinsing his hair, and I swiped before the screen locked. Chloe's name. "Last night was perfect. Same time tomorrow?" My stomach lurched. I scrolled. Dozens of messages. Weeks of lies. Inside jokes. Hotel receipts. Photos I couldn't unsee. Daniel's voice drifted from the shower. "Hey babe, can you grab me a towel?" I locked the phone, set it down, and forced my voice steady. Sure. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like someone else. Pale, hollow. But my eyes burned. The next morning, I made a plan. Not revenge yet, just survival. I needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof. So when Daniel said, "I'll be late tonight," I nodded sweetly. "Of course, don't work too hard." As soon as he left, I followed. He didn't drive to the office. He drove straight to Chloe's. Again. I parked down the street, phone in hand, recording video. His car in her driveway. Him walking to her door. Her greeting him with that same practiced smile. I filmed everything. My heart hammered, but my hand was steady. Inside my head, thoughts collided. This is my husband. This is my best friend. This is my life being dismantled while they laugh behind my back. The grief hit me first. Hot. Suffocating. But right behind it came rage. And then something else. Clarity. The next day, Chloe came over like nothing was wrong. She sat on my couch, sipping wine, legs crossed. "So," she said, twirling her glass, "how was your anniversary? Did Daniel spoil you?" I stared at her. Her face, her fake concern. I could still see her in that robe, waiting for him. "Yeah," I said calmly. "He spoiled me." She laughed, like it was all a joke we were in on together. "You're lucky, you know. Not all men are like him." I wanted to smash the glass into her smile. Instead, I clinked mine against hers. "You're right. Not all men are like him." Her phone buzzed on the table. She flipped it over quickly, screen down. My stomach turned. That night, while Daniel slept, I went further. I logged into our joint bank account. And there it was. Withdrawals I didn't recognize. Transfers to an account I'd never seen. Thousands. Not once, but over months. Receipts appeared in his email. Hotel bookings, jewelry, gifts I'd never received. My throat tightened. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was financing their fantasy with our money. I printed everything. Every statement, every receipt. I tucked them into a folder and slid it under my desk drawer. Evidence. When Daniel stirred beside me that night, rolling over with his arm heavy across my waist. I stared at the ceiling. His touch used to feel safe. Now it felt like chains. And in that silence, the last piece clicked into place. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't weakness or temptation. This was deliberate, planned, calculated. My husband and my best friend weren't just betraying me. They were stealing my life. One lie, $1, one night at a time. I lay there in the dark, pulse steady, breathing even, while the thought burned into me. If they wanted to play games, they had no idea who they were up against. 2 nights later, Daniel stumbled in after midnight. His tie was loose, shirt half untucked. "Rough day," he muttered, kicking off his shoes. "Work?" I asked, voice calm. "Yeah," he said. "Client meeting ran late." I nodded. "You must be exhausted." He kissed my forehead, the same lips he'd used on her hours earlier. "I'll make it up to you this weekend." I smiled faintly, heart pounding with a secret he didn't know. "I'm sure you will." The next morning, I tested him. "Hey, Daniel," I said over breakfast. "Chloe wants to do a girls' trip. Just the 2 of us. What do you think?" His spoon froze midair. Barely a second. Then he smiled. "That sounds fun. You deserve it." Too quick, too rehearsed. I sipped my coffee, studying him. He thought he was clever. He thought I was blind. Inside, the rage was a steady drumbeat. But my face was calm, my voice light. Because now I knew. And once you know, you can't unknow. A week later, I was in Chloe's house. She invited me over for wine night. Daniel wasn't there. We sat in her kitchen, candles flickering. She poured me a glass, her eyes too bright, her smile too wide. "So," she asked, tilting her head, "how are things with Daniel?" I met her gaze. "Fine." Her laugh was sharp, forced. "Good. You deserve fine." Her phone buzzed again. She flipped it face down, but not before I saw his name flash across the screen. I lifted my glass, hiding my smirk. This was it. The moment grief died and something else was born. I wasn't just a wife anymore. I wasn't just a friend. I was the woman they underestimated. And I was going to ruin them. Daniel thought he'd won. That was his mistake. For the next week, I played my part flawlessly. I cooked his dinners, washed his shirts, even laughed at his recycled jokes. To him, nothing had changed. To me, everything had. Every smile I gave him was another mask, another brick in the wall between us. The grief was gone. The shock, too. What I had left was clarity. And clarity is dangerous. I wasn't going to confront him in the middle of the night. I wasn't going to throw his things onto the lawn like some desperate soap opera wife. I was going to strip him of everything he thought made him untouchable. The house, the money, the respect. And I was going to use the one weapon he never expected. Divorce. It started small. One morning over breakfast, Daniel scrolled through his phone while I stirred sugar into my coffee. "Late night?" I asked casually. He looked up, startled. "What? You got home after midnight?" He shrugged, setting his phone face down. "Yeah, client dinner. You know how it is." I nodded, sipping slowly. "Of course." His eyes studied me for a second too long. Testing. Did I suspect? Was I angry? I smiled faintly. "I'm glad you're working so hard for us." Relief washed over his face. He actually believed me. That's when I knew I had him. Later that week, Chloe called. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Babe, you've been so quiet. Everything okay?" I forced a laugh. "Yeah, just grading papers. You know how it is." "We should do a spa day," she suggested. "My treat." I bit my tongue. My treat. She'd been using Daniel's money for months, maybe years, and now she wanted to rub it in my face. "Sure," I said brightly. "Sounds perfect." She squealed. "I'll book it." When I hung up, my hand shook with rage. But instead of throwing the phone, I opened my laptop and started searching. Divorce attorneys, private investigators. I didn't just want to catch them. I wanted documentation, receipts, evidence that would hold up in court. 2 nights later, I tried something different. I let silence work for me. Daniel came home late again, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. He dropped his briefcase, loosened his tie, and poured himself a drink. "You're quiet tonight," he said, sipping. "Am I?" I asked. He frowned. "Everything okay?" I smiled softly. "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" He studied me like a man searching for cracks in a wall, but I'd built mine too carefully. That's when it hit me. The more he underestimated me, the easier this would be. He thought he was in control. He thought I was still the blind wife clinging to his every excuse. And that was exactly how I wanted him to think. The turning point came 3 days later. I was folding laundry when Daniel walked in, phone in hand. "Going to be another late one," he muttered, grabbing his jacket. I looked up at him, tilting my head. "Do you want me to wait up?" He froze, then chuckled nervously. No. I'll be late. Don't bother." I set the shirt down. "Okay. Be safe." That's all I said. 2 words. Be safe. But inside, something shifted. This was the last time I was going to play the naive wife. The last time I'd sit at home pretending to wonder where he was. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was certain. I was going to take everything. That night, I packed a small overnight bag. Just the essentials. When Daniel came home reeking of Chloe's perfume, I told him I needed space. "I've been overwhelmed," I said quietly, eyes downcast. "I think I need a break. Just for a little while." He blinked, stunned. "What do you mean? Like, a separation?" "Not forever," I said quickly, feigning weakness. "Just, I need to clear my head. Maybe stay at my sister's for a few weeks." He relaxed, almost smug. He thought he'd won again. That I was breaking, retreating, making it easier for him to sneak into Chloe's bed. "Whatever you need," he said, patting my hand like I was a child. "Take all the time you want." I smiled faintly, hiding the fire in my chest. "Thank you, Daniel. You're so understanding." That was the night I left our house. Not because I was broken, because I needed room to prepare. Lying in my sister's guest room, I spread the folder across the bed. Screenshots of messages, bank records, hotel receipts, photos of his car in Chloe's driveway. It wasn't enough yet. But it would be. I picked up a pen and wrote 3 words at the top of the folder. Everything. From him. The next morning, Daniel called. His voice was warm, soothing. "How are you holding up?" "Better," I lied. "I just need some time." He sighed like the world was on his shoulders. "Take all the time you need. I'll keep things steady here." Steady. I almost laughed. He had no idea what was coming. Because this wasn't about leaving anymore. It wasn't about heartbreak or healing. It was about revenge. Cold, precise, devastating revenge. And the first move was already in motion. The morning after I moved into my sister's, I called a lawyer. "Divorce attorney, family law," the receptionist said. My voice didn't shake. "I need a consultation, as soon as possible." By that afternoon, I was sitting across from a man in a navy suit, his desk stacked with files. He looked at me over his glasses. "Mrs. Brooks, tell me why you're here." I slid the folder across the desk. Receipts, messages, photos. His eyes scanned the evidence, expression tightening. "This is solid," he said finally. "Infidelity cases can be tricky, but you've got documentation. And the financial transfers? That changes everything." I leaned forward. "I don't just want out. I want everything. The house, the accounts. I want him left with nothing." The attorney nodded slowly. "Then we'll build a case that doesn't just prove adultery. We'll prove fraud. If he's funneling marital funds into another account, or to another woman, we can nail him for dissipation of assets." A cold smile tugged at my lips. "Perfect." That night, Daniel called. "Hey, babe," he said, voice dripping with fake warmth. "How's it going over there?" I lowered my voice, playing the fragile wife. "I'm coping. Just need space. Take all the time you need, he said. We'll figure it out. My jaw clenched. We'll figure it out. He had no idea the figuring was already done. 2 days later, I met with a private investigator recommended by my attorney. A woman named Angela, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. Your husband, she said, flipping through my folder. He's sloppy. Men like him always think they're smarter than they are. You want photos, videos, times, dates? You'll have them. How soon? I asked. Give me a week, she said, smirking. He won't know I'm there. I shook her hand, my grip steady. Then he won't know what hit him. Meanwhile, I kept up appearances. I texted Chloe like nothing was wrong. How's your migraine? I wrote. Her reply came quick. Better. We should do lunch soon. Lunch. I almost laughed out loud. She was so sure of herself, so confident that I was still blind. When Daniel called later that night, I put her name in the conversation deliberately. I was thinking of grabbing coffee with Chloe tomorrow, I said softly. He hesitated just a fraction of a second too long, then forced cheer. That's great. You two should catch up. I smiled into the phone. Yeah, we should. By the end of the week, Angela delivered. A manila envelope landed on my lap. Inside, photographs of Daniel entering Chloe's house, videos of them kissing in her driveway, receipts from a hotel 2 towns over, time-stamped, dated. Angela leaned back in her chair. This is airtight. If you want to destroy him in court, this is your golden ticket. I stared at the evidence, my pulse steady. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was ammunition. The following Sunday, Chloe invited me over. Girls' night, she chirped. Wine and face masks like old times. I went, sat across from her on her couch, watching her pour wine with those perfectly manicured nails. You're glowing, she said, smirking. That little break must be good for you. I sipped my wine. It is. Gives me time to think. About what? About what I deserve, I said quietly, meeting her eyes. For a second, her smile faltered. Just a flicker. Then she laughed it off. Of course, babe. You deserve the world. I smiled back. I know. If she noticed the steel in my tone, she didn't comment. The next step was subtle sabotage. I stopped contributing to the joint account. Every paycheck I received from the college went into a separate account in my name only. Daniel didn't notice. He was too busy siphoning money for Chloe. Meanwhile, I made copies of everything, every statement, every bill. I even checked the mortgage. His name was on it, yes, but so was mine. And with the right lawyer, that meant leverage. I began planting seeds in conversations, too. When my mother-in-law called to check on us, I said, Daniel and I are working through things. He's been so distracted lately. She sighed. That boy works too much. He needs to appreciate you. Oh, he does, I said smoothly. He just has other priorities right now. I could almost hear her suspicion growing. Let her stew on it. The more cracks in his image, the better. The plan sharpened piece by piece. Step 1, gather undeniable proof. Done. Step 2, secure finances. In motion. Step 3, control the narrative. Not confrontation. Not yet. Just whispers, subtle doubts, questions that would snowball once the truth came out. Step 4, drop the bomb. Divorce papers, delivered with every piece of evidence attached. No warning. No time for him to hide. By the end of the month, my lawyer had the case built. Adultery, fraud, dissipation of marital assets. You'll get the house, he told me. You'll get the accounts. Depending on how the judge sees it, he could end up paying you alimony too. I let the words sink in. The man who mocked my dreams, who used my trust, who funneled our money into his affair, he was about to bankroll the rest of my life. The night before I was set to file, Daniel called. Hey, he said softly. I've been thinking. Maybe you should move back in. We can reset. Start fresh. My lips curled into a smile he couldn't see. Maybe, I whispered. I'll think about it. He exhaled, relieved. Good. I miss you. I hung up, staring at the stack of documents on the table. I didn't miss him. I didn't even hate him anymore. Hate was messy. What I felt was cleaner, sharper, resolve. When I slid the signed papers into the envelope the next morning, my hands didn't shake. This wasn't the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of his downfall. Daniel always thought control was his weapon. He was wrong. Silence was mine. The divorce filing wasn't just paperwork. It was the opening strike. He stormed into my sister's house the night he was served, fists clenched, eyes wild, waving the papers like they were a personal betrayal instead of justice. "You blindsided me," he shouted. I stayed seated, sipping tea. "I warned you without warning, Daniel. That's the beauty of it. What does that even mean?" His voice cracked with desperation. I leaned forward, voice low, sharp. "It means I don't scream. I don't fight. I destroy." He flinched. For the first time in years, Daniel Brooks was afraid of me. But fear wasn't enough. I wanted devastation. So I planned the dinner. I invited his parents, his sister, even an uncle who worshipped him like a golden boy. Daniel and Chloe didn't know the real reason. I simply told them it was a chance to talk things through as a family. They bought it, smug in their confidence that I was breaking apart. They walked in hand, like they weren't walking into a trap. Chloe in her perfect dress, Daniel in his tailored suit. Smiles plastered on their faces, ready to perform. I let them sit. I poured wine. I kept my smile calm, calculated. When the table settled into awkward chatter, I stood. A folder rested in my hands. "I thought tonight would be the right time to clear the air," I began. My voice carried steady, deliberate. Daniel frowned. "Carolyn, this isn't necessary." I opened the folder and slid the first photo across the table. Daniel and Chloe kissing in her driveway. Gasps rippled. His mother's hand flew to her chest. His sister whispered, "Oh my God." Daniel's face drained. Chloe shifted in her seat, her smile collapsing. "This," Daniel stammered. "This isn't what it looks like." I laid down another photo. Hotel receipts, both their names. Room service for 2. "Stop lying," I said flatly. Chloe reached for the papers, panicked. "Carolyn, please." I slammed my palm down, pinning the evidence beneath it. My voice cut like glass. "You were my best friend, my maid of honor, and all this time, you were fucking my husband." The room went still. No one moved. Daniel's father broke the silence. His voice was low, trembling. "Son, tell me this isn't true." Daniel's jaw worked, desperate. "It's not. She's twisting." I cut him off, sliding the bank statements across the table. Transfers. Thousands. From our joint account straight into Chloe Miller's name. His mother gasped, tears brimming. "Daniel!" Daniel lunged for the papers, but I pulled them back, smiling coldly. "Tomorrow the court will see all of this. But tonight, I wanted you to know who your son really is, who your brother really is." I gathered the folder, leaving only one photo behind. Daniel kissing Chloe, timestamp glowing. Then I stood, my chair scraping back. "Enjoy your meal." And I walked out. The silence I left behind was heavier than any scream could have been. The next morning was court. Daniel arrived with Chloe glued to his side, both trying to look unshaken. I sat with my lawyer, calm, collected, folder in hand. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. "Mrs. Brooks," my attorney began, "has provided extensive documentation of Mr. Brooks's infidelity, as well as financial misconduct. We submit Exhibits A through G." He laid out photos, receipts, bank records. Each piece another nail in Daniel's coffin. Daniel's lawyer scrambled. "Your Honor, these photos are circumstantial." The judge lifted a brow. "Hotel receipts with both names are not circumstantial. Bank transfers from a marital account to a mistress's name are not circumstantial." Daniel shifted, sweating. Chloe kept her eyes down. Then my lawyer played the video. Daniel entering Chloe's house late at night. Timestamp. Date. Her porch light glowing. The courtroom murmured. "Mr. Brooks," the judge said sharply, "do you deny the man in this video is you?" Daniel's mouth opened, closed. He glanced at Chloe, panicked. "No further questions," my lawyer said smoothly. The judge's ruling came swift, merciless. Mrs. Brooks will retain the marital home. She will be awarded the joint accounts. Due to evidence of dissipation of assets, Mr. Brooks will also pay spousal support. Furthermore, evidence submitted regarding Ms. Miller will be forwarded for investigation into potential complicity in misappropriation of funds. Chloe's head snapped up, her face white. "What? No, I didn't." Daniel grabbed her arm, hissing, "Shut up!" But it was too late. The gavel struck. The courtroom buzzed as I stood, gathering my things. Outside, Daniel cornered me. "You ruined me," he spat. His voice cracked, no longer commanding, just broken. I leaned close, whispering so only he could hear. "No, Daniel, you ruined yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it." His eyes burned with rage, but beneath it, I saw fear. Pure, helpless fear. I turned and walked away, heels clicking against the marble floor, leaving him with nothing. That night, I returned to the house. My house. I walked through each room, steady breaths filling the silence. No longer a prison, now a trophy. In the kitchen, I poured a glass of wine. I set the folder of evidence on the table, staring at the final page, the decree that bore my name, the proof that Daniel Brooks had lost everything. And then my phone buzzed. A message from Chloe. "You think you've won? He'll come back to me. He always does." I laughed, sharp, humorless. Then I typed back, "Then you can pay his debts too." I hit send, drained my glass, and let the silence wash over me. Because this wasn't healing, this wasn't closure, this was victory. And I savored every second. The dust settled quickly, but the wreckage remained. Daniel moved into a cramped apartment on the edge of town. No more polished suits, no more house with manicured lawns. Just peeling paint and a lease he could barely afford. His family stopped speaking to him. His mother, who once bragged about her golden boy, now refused to answer his calls. His sister told him not to show his face at her children's birthdays. The shame spread wider than any rumor. He tried to cling to Chloe. She was all he had left. But Chloe had her own battles. The bank froze her account within a week. Investigators wanted answers. Where had the money gone? Why had she accepted funds she had no right to? She cried in meetings, swore she didn't know, but the paper trail was clear. She wasn't just the mistress. She was complicit. The panic set in fast. She called me. "Carolyn, please," she begged, her voice cracking. "You don't understand. They're saying I could lose everything. My job, my savings." I let her ramble, her words dripping with desperation. Finally, I cut in, calm and cold. "Now you know how it feels to watch everything you've built disappear," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Neither did I said flatly, and hung up. That was the last time we spoke. Daniel tried to fight me in court again. Claimed I'd manipulated the evidence. Claimed Chloe was lying. Claimed he deserved another hearing. The judge wasn't swayed. The evidence was airtight. His appeals were denied, one after another. He was drowning in debt. Alimony, legal fees, frozen accounts. Chloe grew restless. She snapped at him in court, hissed at him in the hallways. "This is your fault," she spat one day, loud enough for everyone to hear. Daniel turned on her. "My fault? You took the money." Their cracks widened in public, their alliance crumbling into open warfare. The perfect affair, the fairy tale they built on my back, collapsed under the weight of their greed. Meanwhile, I thrived. I kept the house. I kept the accounts. My lawyer negotiated alimony that guaranteed my independence. For the first time in years, I didn't just breathe, I lived. Neighbors whispered, but not about me. They whispered about him. About how Daniel Brooks lost everything to his wife. About how his mistress walked away with nothing but shame. I didn't correct them. I let the whispers grow. One evening, weeks after the final ruling, I sat at the kitchen table. The same table where Daniel once bragged about his deals. The folder of evidence was gone, locked away in a drawer. In its place sat something new, a bank statement. An account in my name only. A healthy balance. Not just from the settlement. Months earlier, while Daniel thought I was unraveling, I'd opened this account quietly. Every paycheck I earned from teaching, every cent he didn't notice, I funneled here. Even some of the joint assets, the ones he was too careless to track, had found their way into my safety net. So when he thought he was siphoning money into Chloe's account, when he thought he was untouchable, I was already one step ahead. That was the part no one knew. Not even my lawyer. I'd won twice. Legally, publicly, and privately, strategically. The final twist came at Chloe's expense. I read about it in the paper. Local woman under investigation for fraudulent transfers. Her name, her photo, plastered on the front page. The article detailed it all. Funds received without legal justification, suspicion of tax evasion, potential charges pending. I cut out the article and slid it into my drawer. Later that night, I poured a glass of wine and walked out onto the porch. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. Somewhere across town, Daniel was drowning in bills, his mistress facing criminal charges. And me? I was free. Not healed. Not softened. Not forgiven. Free. Because revenge isn't about closure. It's about balance. And the scales had finally tipped. The last text I ever sent to Daniel was 3 words. You underestimated me. No reply came. None was needed. I closed my phone, leaned back, and smiled. Because I hadn't just survived their betrayal. I had buried them with it. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it struck a chord with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts, or even your own experiences in the comments below. Your perspective makes this community stronger. And if you found this story powerful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Your support means the world, and it helps bring more of these stories to life. Until next time, stay strong, stay true, and I'll see you in the next story.